The FBI raids the homes of two ISIS-inspired men arrested for a terror attack in New York City.
Both defendants have admitted that they acted on Saturday because of ISIS.
What do we know about the suspects and what charges do they face?
I'm Georgia Howe with Daily Wire Executive Editor John Bickley. It's Tuesday, March 10th, and this is Morning Wire.
As epic fury rages on, the price of oil surges, sparking fears of more pain at the pump.
The plan is to get oil and natural gas and fertilizer and all the products from the Gulf flowing through the straits before too long.
And Trump steps in to help the Iranian women's soccer team in Australia after they were branded as wartime traitors by the regime.
We stand in solidarity with the men and women of Iran, and particularly Iranian women and girls.
Thanks for waking up with Morning Wire. Stay tuned. We have the news you need to know.
This episode is sponsored by Brickhouse Nutrition. You've probably heard about those weight loss injections that everyone's been talking about, and for good reason. The results can be pretty incredible. They work by helping regulate blood sugar and keeping your appetite in check. But here's the thing, not everyone wants to deal with weekly injections, especially when you start hearing about some of the side effects that can come with them. That's where Lean comes in. It's a weight loss supplement developed by doctors, and people are seeing some really impressive results. The ingredients in Lean are backed by research showing that they can help lower blood sugar, turn stored fat into energy, and reduce those constant cravings that make dieting so hard. This stuff is no joke. I am one of those people that eats sometimes a lot when I'm stressed. But once Lean came into the picture, I was able to rein in my cravings. Let's get you started with 20% off and free rush shipping so you can add Lean to your healthy diet and exercise plan. Visit takelean.com and enter WIRE for your discount. That's promo code WIRE at takelean.com today.
New York is on high alert after the arrest of two Muslim men who attempted to bomb a protest. The FBI have raided the suspects' homes, with officials now stating the attack was inspired by ISIS.
Joining us now to discuss is Ben Domenech, host of The Big Ben Show and the newly minted opinion editor here at the Daily Wire. Ben, great to have you on the show.
Great to be with you.
So look, we've learned more about the attack in New York over the weekend, particularly about the two men arrested in connection to the bombs. What are we hearing from officials on them now?
Well, what we've discovered is that these two young men, an 18 and a 19-year-old, their names respectively are Amir Balat and Ibrahim Kayumi, are both men from Pennsylvania who came across the border. They traveled in interstate ways, which is one of the reasons why the DOJ has now charged them with 5 counts. That includes the interstate transportation of explosives and, a number of other things that come into play as federal crimes when you engage in this kind of behavior. But the theory has been pushed forward, not just by the NYPD, but by other commentators as well, that this is another example of self-radicalization, a problem that we've seen in a number of these cases, including particularly, and I think this is of serious concern, involving young people. And they apparently had the attitude toward this of wanting and hoping for an incident along the lines of the Boston Marathon event years ago.
A lot of buzz about the homes that were raided, the wealth of these families. What have you seen in terms of that discussion?
Well, one of the things that we know about these families is that they don't have any background that would associate them with this kind of behavior. They seem like, well-off suburban families in terms of the homes that they had that were, in the upper crust of the area that they lived in. In one case, a more than $2 million home with 6 bedrooms, that kind of thing. And I think that what you're seeing here is a new embrace of what we used to refer to back in the 1970s as the radical chic. The idea that there's enormous appeal for a lot of younger Americans, even if they come from an environment in which they have everything on paper that they would need, that they go to good schools, that they have money as a family, that they're living in many senses the American dream, that they still rebel against it, that there's a cool factor involved in that designed to appeal. And I think that especially in the wake of what we saw with Luigi Mangione, that's something that is only going to continue to be an element of these types of attacks and attempted attacks going forward.
Now, Mayor Mamdani has come under a lot of scrutiny for his response to the attack initially on Sunday. We reported on his initial comments. Have we seen any action or heard any more from him?
What we've heard from Mayor Mamdani does not involve him using the word terrorist. He has declined to use that. He has not focused really on the bombers. He's instead tried to say things in a very general sense that the protest that was going on at the time, the one which drew these bombers to it, which was backed by someone who's been called a white supremacist and had some elements to it that Mamdani has criticized in the past, that kind of protest should be allowed to go forward. And that, the counter protesters who came were on the most part peaceful, according to Mamdani. I don't think it matters that much if they're mostly peaceful, if they also come with bombs designed to kill cops and protesters designed to create mayhem and murder. And yet Mamdani seems to find it difficult to criticize this. One of the reasons that I think that's the case is because of how terrible the Democratic Party is when it comes to their younger cohort on issues related to Israel and Islam. We've heard, already the connections that these young men have potentially with, being supportive of ISIS and the like. We'll see more about the evidence in the coming days, I think, on that front. But it's not in any way at odds with a gigantic cohort of the young people in the Democratic coalition to view Israel and everything associated with it in completely negative terms. The latest polling that we have from the Manhattan Institute, for instance, finds that for Democrats under 30, 26% believe that Israel is a colonial power that must be dismantled and destroyed. 38% believe that the October 7th attack was a false flag attack in order to justify the war in Gaza. And fully 24% of Democrats under the age of 30 believe that the Holocaust was greatly exaggerated.
Certainly very disturbing findings there. Ben, thank you so much for coming on.
Great to be with you.
Well, before we continue, I'm excited to give you some amazing news about an issue that we care about here at the Daily Wire. Our friends at Alliance Defending Freedom have just announced that the state of Vermont has agreed to change its policy that discriminated against Christian foster families. Families like the Woties and Gants were model foster parents. They had taken in siblings and even focused on caring for kids with struggles like fetal alcohol syndrome. And these parents had lost their foster licenses because they refused to compromise their faith by participating in a lie. They were told they had to agree to promote the state's radical gender ideology, including by taking kids to pride parades. Following a victory in a similar case out of Oregon last year, this win in Vermont means we're winning the battle, folks. I can't tell you how inspiring it is to learn about the courage of these families, moms and dads who have answered the call to care for vulnerable children who deserve a loving home. Go to joinadf.com/wire and find out more about this incredible victory and how Alliance Defending Freedom is standing up for everyday families and protecting our constitutional rights. That's joinadf.com/wire or text WIRE to 83848 and celebrate this amazing victory with us.
Amid fears of an energy crisis, global markets tumbled Monday before making a dramatic comeback.
Cabot Phillips, host of Wired in Live, joins us now with more. So, Cabot, we'll get to the economic news next, but first I want to ask, what's the latest in Iran?
Well, it's becoming increasingly clear that the Iranians have no plans on giving in to President Trump's demand of an unconditional surrender. The country continued to target numerous Gulf states with missiles and attack drones on Monday, with at least one of those missiles entering Turkish airspace for a second time now. That missile was shot down, but it's now the second time Turkey's been targeted, which again is major considering their status as a NATO member. The regime's defiant response to Trump was also evident in their selection of Ayatollah Khamenei's son, Mojtaba, as his successor. The move suggests the country is not shying away from its radical ideology. The regime ordered Iranians to attend nationwide demonstrations yesterday to honor his ascension to the top spot.
Now, with that backdrop, we are approaching the 2-week mark, and we're starting to see some economic outcomes across the globe. So where do things stand with the price of oil?
Yeah, the economic fallout has been felt worldwide, especially in Asia, where countries like Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan are heavily reliant on oil and gas imports coming through the Strait of Hormuz. Their largest stock exchanges saw massive volatility this week, dropping 4 to 6% on Monday and then jumping back up when markets opened Tuesday. U.S. markets saw a similar but smaller swing. The Dow was down 900 points Monday morning, but shot back up by the time markets closed, ultimately gaining more than 1% on the day. That came after President Trump made comments saying the war effort in Iran is, quote, very far ahead of schedule. But the biggest economic impact has been felt in the oil industry, where we saw similar volatility Monday. The price of a barrel soared to $120 by mid-afternoon, but then fell all the way down to the mid-80s by Monday night when President Trump offered even more indications that he can see a light at the end of the tunnel in Iran. Iranian strikes have already damaged a number of oil facilities in Saudi Arabia, Oman, and Bahrain, and new strikes continue to threaten key sites across the region. So obviously that's impacting production and output. But more importantly, Iran is attempting a blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. That is the narrow waterway in which about 20% of the global energy supply passes through daily. The Iranians have successfully attacked at least one oil tanker there and threatened to strike others. And that's understandably leading oil companies to halt or delay passage through the strait, which is causing a significant backup. And as those ships start to back up, storage tanks at refineries are filling up with nowhere for the oil to go, and that is forcing production to slow down while they wait for tankers to come in for transport. Here's Jay Young, CEO of King Operating Corporation, speaking to that point.
Any type of disruption is going to hurt. And when OPEC countries over the weekend said, we're going to start shutting down some of our wells because we don't know if they're going to come through the Strait of Hormuz or not. And if you're shutting down production and you have oil in the market, I mean, there's just so much that can happen at the drop of a hat that we could see prices literally, go up and down, $20, $30, $40 a barrel in one day just because of the speculation and the disruption and the who knows what's going to happen factor out there.
Speaking to the press last night, President Trump addressed the threat and outlined his plan to protect tankers operating in the region.
During this brief disruption, the United States is offering political risk insurance to any tankers operating in the Gulf. We're also waiving certain oil-related sanctions to reduce prices. When the time comes, the U.S. Navy and its partners will escort tankers through the strait if needed.
Cabot, thanks for reporting.
Absolutely.
The Iranian women's soccer team just wrapped up competing in Australia as part of the AFC Asian Cup tournament, but now their future is in limbo as their home is a war zone.
Daily Wire reporter Lyndon Blake joins us now to explain what happens next for these soccer players and how President Trump is getting involved. So, Lyndon, first off, why are these female soccer players stuck in Australia?
Yeah, so now we know that 5 of the Iranian soccer players have found asylum there in Australia, which is good news. But a lot of them are asking to stay in Australia because of what's going on back in their home country of Iran. And this is interesting because there's so many people that are trying to help them out, including President Trump. They're asking the Australian Prime Minister to continue to protect the team by not sending any of them back to Iran amid this war and out of the fear of them being persecuted. So there are many who think that these women, if they go back to Iran, are going to be harmed right now because in one of the matches before, they didn't sing the Iranian national anthem. So that was a couple of matches ago. And they got a lot of pushback from the current regime because they thought that them being silent during that national anthem made them a traitor, so to speak. So in their next 2 matches, they sang the Iranian national anthem, even did this military salute because of the pushback. So the women now are in this chaotic scene. I'm going to try to paint a picture for you. After their last match, which was Sunday, they were on this bus and a lot of Iranian supporters were surrounding the bus and they were chanting for Australian officials to protect the women. And some are reporting that there were at least 3 players on the bus that gave a universal hand sign that stands for help. So that was a key that was telling people like, okay, these women are scared for their lives to go back home to Iran, and therefore they want the Australian government to do something to step in and protect them.
Now, did the regime or any representative from the regime say anything specific about these women after they failed to sing the national anthem?
So the current regime viewed their silence as a form of treason, but what made it even more real is Reza Pahlavi, who's the son of Iran's ousted Shah, commented on this. He begged Australia to ensure the girls' safety. He said this on X: as a result of their brave act of civil disobedience and refusing to sing the current regime's national anthem, they face dire consequences should they return to Iran. Even more so, this organization, it's the union that is the global soccer players union for these women. They released a statement saying these statements significantly heighten concerns for the players' safety should they return to Iran. So they have the union even backing them to not return home. Thankfully, President Trump did speak with Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, who is the Prime Minister of Australia, and he says that the Prime Minister has taken care of the remainder of the team and that the team is in good hands. But what's interesting about this is Trump is saying that some of the women still feel like they need to go back to Iran to protect their families. But it seems that Trump is at peace with how Australia is handling this now, after saying yesterday that the United States would step in and offer asylum if Australia did not. Keep in mind now that the Men's FIFA World Cup is coming to the U.S. this summer. Iran, they're supposed to participate. They're supposed to kick things off June 15th in Los Angeles. And the Iranian Soccer Federation president said this: what is certain is that after this attack, talking about the war, is we cannot be expected to look forward to the World Cup with hope. So a lot of things happening since that war started.
Well, very frightening for them to have a target on their back and thinking about their families as well. Lyndon, thanks for reporting.
Thanks.
Thanks for waking up with us. And for those listening to the show, you can also now watch the show free on Daily Wire Plus. We'll be back this evening with more news you need to know.